Have you ever noticed that as you get older, some forms of family love start to feel more like a burden than a comfort? I'm 63 now, and it wasn't until I hit 60 that I finally started to see it clearly. All those ties and connections that were supposed to be for my own good, sometimes they slowly drain the joy right out of me. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Mary Louise Thompson. I used to be a middle school English teacher in a small town in Pennsylvania. I taught for almost 30 years. After retiring, I have a modest monthly pension, about $2,000, and some savings. I live alone now. My husband passed away from a stroke years ago. He was a good man, and his death left a quiet space in my life that never really filled up again. I have two grown children. My son, John, works in Boston. He's married to a very driven woman. My daughter, Emily, lives in the South, Savannah, Georgia. She has a family of her own. Both of them are busy with their lives, and visits are rare, only really happening around Thanksgiving or Christmas. My days are simple. I wake up around 5 a.m. each morning. I clean up a bit, make breakfast, then take a walk to the farmer's market to buy groceries. I enjoy watching the news, and I tend to my flowers out on the back porch. It might sound peaceful, and in some ways it is, but there's this persistent little ache that never quite goes away. When I was younger, I believed love was action. I thought my kids would always be close. After all, I raised them with so much care. And now I just want to be remembered, not smothered, not depended on, but simply held in mind. The breaking point for me came on one particular Thanksgiving a few years ago. I had prepared a full table: roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, green bean casserole, pecan pie, cornbread, you name it. I even made John's favorite mushroom gravy and Emily's childhood favorite, pumpkin muffins with cream cheese filling. I waited the whole afternoon for a phone call or a knock on the door. Nothing came. As the daylight faded and the moon came out, I picked up the phone and called John. He said, "Mom, I'm working late. We couldn't make it." I meant to call. Emily texted back a few minutes later, "Sorry, Mom. The baby's got a cold. We're staying in." I didn't say much. The food sat cold on the table, untouched. I sat in silence, staring at the empty chairs, the empty plates, the empty house. My eyes burned. I wasn't angry, just exhausted. I thought family meant something stronger than this. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept turning. Was I still holding on to a dream of closeness that didn't match reality? Had the nature of family changed without me noticing? I decided to stop reaching out for a while. Not in bitterness, but in quiet reflection. I wanted to see if they'd reach back. The days turned into weeks. One day I got the flu. It hit me hard. I was alone in the house with a high fever, no strength to get out of bed. For 3 days, I lived on saltine crackers and water. I hoped someone might call. No one did. Meanwhile, my neighbor, Mrs. Kent, she's about my age, seems to live a different life. Her son visits twice a week, takes her to her doctor appointments, brings her groceries, sometimes just sits with her and chats. She told me once, "You just have to let them know you want attention. Act like you need them." I tried. One winter, my water heater broke down. I called John, thinking maybe he could come and check it out. His response? "Mom, just call a plumber. It's not a big deal. Don't always count on me." That hit me deep. I wasn't looking for a fix. I just wanted a visit. It wasn't that they were mean or cruel. It was worse than that. It was indifference. Like I was just a side character in their busy lives. On my birthday last year, Emily sent a text with a picture of a cake. "Happy birthday, Mom. I ordered this cake for you. Should arrive today." It never came. She later said the address must have been wrong and promised to resend it. She never did. Was that her way of showing love? A digital photo of a cake that never arrived? Then came a more serious event. I had a dizzy spell one morning and fell in the bathroom. I was on the floor for almost 30 minutes before I could crawl to the couch. Heart pounding, I finally reached for my phone. John didn't pick up. Emily did, but her response was, "Mom, not again. You have to be more careful. You scared me." No one asked if I was okay. No one came. That night, I sat in the dark with a cup of tea, the warmth fading fast. I asked myself, Am I a mother or just a problem to manage? Older people like me often get told we're too emotional. We're told to tough it out. But you know what? Our hearts feel just like they did when we were 30. We just hide it better. I started taking sleeping pills. I thought about moving to a senior living center, not because I couldn't handle things, but because I wanted human connection again. I wanted someone to talk to, someone who cared if I lived or died. Then one day I noticed a flyer on the bulletin board outside my local grocery store, Senior Awakening and Sharing Group, Finding Yourself Again in the Golden Years. I read it 3 times before calling the number. That call changed everything. When I walked into the meeting room, I felt so small. There were about 20 people in there. Men, women, all about my age or older. I sat in a corner, not saying a word. Then a woman named Carol spoke. She said she had developed anxiety from caring full-time for her grandson. Her daughter-in-law once told her, "You meddle too much." That remark landed her in the hospital. Carol said something that stuck with me. Not all love should come without boundaries. Tears poured down my face. I didn't even try to stop them. That day I met Mr. Jenkins, a retired social worker. He told me, "Mary, it's not that you're lonely. You've just been locked into being mom for so long that you forgot you're also a whole person." With his encouragement, I started attending weekly meetings. I listened. I spoke. And slowly I started to heal. One day I said aloud, "I don't think my children love me." My voice trembled, but the hands that reached out to squeeze mine made me feel held, finally seen. After one session, a group of us took a walk through the park. The sun was shining. The leaves were just beginning to turn. One of the women, Margaret, looked around and said, "You know, we're still here. That means we get to choose how we live these next years." She had gone on a solo cross-country trip after turning 70, stayed in bed and breakfast, took pictures, wrote in her journal. "I'm 70, she said with a grin. "I owe no one an apology anymore." I went home that day and looked around my living room. Same furniture, same quiet, but something had shifted. I started to reclaim little pieces of myself. I signed up for watercolor classes. I joined a gardening club. I went to Sunday services not because my children would be proud, but because the choir made me feel alive. And the most surprising thing, the less I demanded from my kids, the more they started reaching out. Maybe not often, maybe not deeply, but enough. I still love them, of course. I always will. But I've stopped waiting by the phone. Now I live for the blooming of my lilies, the warmth of tea in the morning, the stories I share with the new friends who see me for who I am. Not just mom, not just grandma, not just a shadow of who I was, but Mary Louise Thompson. A woman who gave love and finally learned to give some back to herself. One Sunday morning, my dear friend Linda, who runs the new Silver Circle Community Hub, reached out and said, "Why don't you come by this Sunday? It's just open, part cafe, part workshop space, part little library. It's a place for folks 60 and over." I felt a flicker of curiosity. Maybe it was time to get out of the house. That morning, I walked in and was instantly struck by how the warmth of the sun was dancing on the wooden floors. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, mixed with potted geraniums, filled the air. On one side of the room, a gentleman with silver hair was gently strumming a guitar. Around a large communal table, several women were painting watercolor landscapes, chatting softly. The atmosphere was calm, yet full of life, and I felt my age melt away for a moment. Linda introduced me to a class called Life Rediscovery for the Second Act, led by a vibrant 67-year-old instructor named Margaret. She had short, silvery hair, wore a pair of simple silver studs, and her outfit, crisp linen blouse over dark jeans, looked effortlessly sharp. When she began speaking, I sat forward because she said something that went straight to my heart. At our age, our most important job isn't making our children happy anymore. It's refriending ourselves. That one line hit me like a gentle tremor. I realized I had spent decades prioritizing my children's needs and expectations. Maybe it was time to turn some of that attention inward. After the class, I lingered and talked to Margaret. She told me, quietly but with conviction, that she hadn't spoken to her son in over 2 years. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I realized my emotions were hijacking our relationship, she said. Loving him doesn't mean I have to tolerate being overlooked and dismissed. Her words struck a chord. How many times had I done that same dance? Hurt, hopeful, hurt again, seeing myself again. When I got home, I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. Lines had deepened around my eyes. My hair was a soft halo of gray. But as I stared closer, I noticed something else. My gaze was clear. No longer blurred by worry, sadness, or the habit of self-doubt. I remembered how each time I felt low, whether it was one of those silent Sundays or a missed phone call, or a feeling that I'd become invisible, I blamed myself. I believed my worth hinged on how my children responded or didn't respond to me. That evening, I took out my phone and did something small but monumental. I muted that family group chat that so often left me teary, and I moved my phone off the nightstand up into a drawer. I didn't delete it, I just reminded myself that this time, I needed quiet more than I needed them. Then I made tea, chamomile, lavender. I brewed it gently, measured by teaspoon and time. I started a journal again, first page. So often I've asked myself, have I been living for them instead of me? I turned the pages slowly, letting myself acknowledge what I'd buried. That very evening, I stepped out for a walk and bumped into Mrs. Peterson and Carol from down the street, 2 women around my age. We exchanged pleasantries about the weather, the bite of frost coming tomorrow, the best pie at the farmer's market last week. It felt strangely comforting, like discovering an old sweater I'd forgotten I owned. A little adventure. A week later, I saw a flyer at the Silver Circle Hub, Silver Voyagers Community Travel Program. A 2-night trip to the coast, Hopewell Bay and nearby seaside towns. A modest price, mostly shared rooms in a beachfront bed and breakfast. On that first night, we gathered around a communal hot pot dinner. The sound of waves lapping at the shore drifted in through open windows. I looked up at the star-filled sky and felt a quiet swell of something new, a feeling of release. I understood then that stepping away from emotionally taxing family ties wasn't running away. It was choosing myself. Writing the letter. Back home in Denver, I did something I never would have dared before. I wrote a letter to my son David and daughter Emily. It wasn't a complaint. It wasn't an accusation. It was a gentle, turning inward whisper made visible. Dear David and Emily, raising you has been the greatest honor of my life. Now that I'm in my autumn years, I no longer expect your constant presence or to be your emotional dumpster. If you genuinely care, a call or visit would warm my heart. If you're too busy, that's okay too. This time, I'm living for me. Love, Mom. My hand shook the moment I finished. Not from sadness, but from unaccustomed freedom. Clearing space, starting fresh. Then I began another quiet revolution. I sorted through my keepsakes, your childhood drawings, outgrown clothes, old greeting cards. I didn't throw memories away. I honored them, but I made space for now and tomorrow. I told a few neighbors I was moving, not far, just to a co-living senior community near the city center. It surprised them. I'd lived in my little house for decades. But I told them, I'm not running away, I'm stepping forward. A few days later, Emily called. Mom, are you sure you want to move? Need help finding a place? I assured her I was fine. David sounded unsettled. Mom, is this you being angry at us? I told him softly, no, honey. I'm not angry, I'm awake. I love you. But letting myself flourish doesn't mean I love you any less. I just love my life now too. And when I said that, I felt. I breathed through my voice, creating a new daily rhythm. Over the next weeks, I packed up. I visited my new place, an apartment with a cozy kitchenette, a small balcony perfect for potted herbs, a little community garden, and lounge on the ground floor. And best of all, I'd be living alongside others my age who were also starting fresh. The first night in the empty apartment, I almost wept at how quiet it was. No clattering dishes or whispering walls of memories. I stood on the balcony and looked at the stars. I said to myself, this is your choice. It's yours. Since then, each week I've joined a Wednesday morning tea and mindfulness group, a twice weekly strength and balance exercise session, a monthly film discussion circle, And sometimes we go with a friend to the farmer's market, comparing sweets, complaining about prices, laughing about old romances. I've met Nurse Joyce, who used to be an RN in a hospital. She, too, walked away from a family relationship that wore her down. She always says, you have to give yourself permission to be more interesting than your pain. I found myself volunteering, helping. Mr. Andrews, a former school teacher who now has limited mobility. I clip his nails, gently massage his arms, sit and chat about old baseball stats and favorite books. One afternoon he looked at me, eyes shining, and said, "Thank you for remembering me." In that moment I realized I still can shine light in someone's world. Unexpectedly, after moving and reconnecting with movement, with purpose, with free space, my health began to improve. Fewer headaches, less stomach trouble. My doctor looked me in the eye and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I smiled and thought I started putting me first. Now my body is thanking me for once. Reconnections on new terms. 3 months in, Emily surprised me with a visit. She walked into my cozy little apartment, saw me arranging flowers, looked around with a soft awe in her eyes. "Mom, I didn't realize how peaceful this place is." She paused. "I'm proud of you. You aren't just my mom, you're you." She gave me a squeeze. Genuine, not habitual or embarrassed. Later on the phone, David told me he was grateful to see me happy and thriving. Not because I needed him, but because I had found my own light. And in that, I'd found space for them too. Sharing the message. Now, I co-host a senior independent living panel where we share our own stories, not to complain, but to show what's possible. When I said, at our age, what needs breaking is not love, it's the hurtful patterns. What needs letting go is not memories, it's regrets. What matters isn't your age, it's whether you believe you can still begin again. Hearing that, many of the audience wiped away tears. Some whispered, "Oh yes, this is me." I understood then we were never truly alone. We just forgot we could walk out of the silence. Final thoughts. If you've ever mid-late life felt torn apart by being too present for others or too absent, remember, you are worthy of a fresh start at any age. Aging doesn't have to be quiet or defined by others' needs. It can be vibrant. It can be chosen. Here is what I want to tell you, dear reader. You deserve a late life chapter that belongs to you, not trapped by past hurts or sleepless nights. You can say no, lovingly, to those connections that no longer nourish you. You can build a new family, one made of shared laughter, shared routines, shared purpose. You can let yourself begin again. I know it's scary. I know the nights can seem long, but I promise the exit is there. And when you step through, you'll realize the hardest part wasn't aging. It was allowing yourself to start over. Take my story as an invitation. You're never too old to walk into sunshine, turn the page, and finally live for you.